Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fly the Coop. We are so excited to delve into a dynamic conversation with my guest, Becky Burley. Welcome, Becky. How are you today?
Good. I'm wonderful, Carrie Ann. Good to see you.
So good to see you. I haven't actually had a chance to see you or talk to you for quite a while now.
It's been a few weeks.
Yeah, I know. Becky and I met, I think it was back in March of this year. I feel like I've known you for years.
Yep. Same.
And Becky and her partner, Chris, between the two of them, decided to blend their families. And we started a endeavor together, and it's been pretty dynamic. So I just think it's such a beautiful story because there's so many people out there like you, Becky, that have a little bit of fear and overwhelm in the idea of blending as a new couple, blending their families. So I think it's a great interview to share with everybody. And I think we should just delve right in. When did you
Absolutely.
and Chris met? When, blah, can't talk, cut that out. When did you and Chris meet?
We met, it was about a little over 2 years ago. We started dating, and it was definitely, it was one of those where it was like third date. I don't want to see anyone else. I just want to date you. And we did. And it was interesting. You start dating later in your 40s. You move at a different pace, and you're just really transparent. Everything's on the table.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm bringing to this relationship. Here's what you're bringing. So things just move I think a little more quickly, and I think in really great ways, right?
I
And
agree.
when we met you, we were actually we were kind of calling it we had started looking at open houses just for fun, because you know me well enough to know that I love houses, I love interior design, I love all of that. So we were just looking for fun because that's a passion of mine. And we were kicking the tires on houses, like, well, what would this look like? But it's probably when the kids go, right? Like, he has two teenage girls, they're 16. I have a 15-year-old. We're like, it's just a few years away. We'll wait,
Yeah.
right? We'll be in life transition, and that'll be a good time to do it. And then when we met you, I think the house that we met you at was sort of the first house where you could kind of see it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, you could kind
The
of start to
vision.
see like how this could work.
Yeah.
So even then we were like, it's going to be so hard to find a place that's going to meet all of our needs of both of our families, because we had different circumstances, right? And we had different things on the list that were a priority. So we honestly thought, we'll look for fun, nothing will happen. And I think in that process, we found you can do it. Like, it's
Yeah.
realistic. There
Yeah.
are houses out there that work and that met everything that we need. And we found the house on Knox that we're in. I just felt right. You were
We're
here,
in it
you could
right
feel it,
now. You
right?
can see it back there. It's
You
so
can see it. It's
beautiful.
beautiful. It just felt right. I think I was glowing that day,
You
and you could
were.
totally pick up on that.
We will show everybody because it was it was one of my favorite stories truly in a long time, Becky, because all three of these homes, Becky's home, which we did a feature with your interior designer, is stunning. Like, it's a perfect girl pad. And then you incorporated a space, of course, because you'll have to talk about your 15-year-old a little bit. That's a pretty incredible story. And then Chris's home, who he'd been there for over 20 years. And
Mhm.
we did all of this within days, really 48 hours of you guys getting on a plane to
It was
Ireland.
fast.
It was crazy.
We put the offer in, and I thought Chris was more confident, and I know you were really confident in too. And I was like, oh, this is a long shot. And I think part of it's like, you don't want to get your hopes up, right? You're like, keep it down, like, it's probably not going to happen. And we got the call from you, the next day, which was hours before we were getting on a plane to go to Ireland. But a testament to you and your team were amazing, that it was like, we're coming over, we're getting the lockbox on, here's what's going to happen while you're gone. And we still had a lovely time in Ireland with some messages about things we could keep and things we needed to get rid of. But it was a pretty crazy process.
It was, but it was achievable. And I think that's where people get a little bit spun out, right? But they're like, there's just no way. How are we going to coordinate this pendulum of movement with three homes? So two homes selling, one purchasing. And it just works every
Yeah.
time. It works. And the fear, like, especially for Chris's story, which we'll talk about a little bit, it's a single dad with two
Mhm.
girls. We all know what that looks like. Like, how real life is real for everybody. And being able to put a team around that story to get it, we'll put that video back up as well, is transformational. It's transformational to go from living life to putting a product out on the market to the masses, right? So we did that
That
while you guys were gone.
I know we were gone and it was really fun. I mean, I think it, it would have been different to be here. I'm kind of glad we weren't because it was a little more fun to sort of like watch it from the
Yeah,
sidelines. So
I
that was
encourage it.
well, and then going through it on my own and like, you and I had talked about like on my side, it was more about editing and less about staging and kind of cleaning things out. But I'm kind of a perfectionist about the house. So it's still like that was a process of a week too, just to go through like how do you transform this where it makes sense for someone else? Because the
Right.
house made so much sense for me. I don't know that it made sense for everyone.
Oh, it's stunning. Your house equally beautiful. And I think this is a great thing to touch on for women out there, right? That are in their 40s and 50s. I'm 54, you're in your 40s, both with second relationships in our life now. Blending aesthetics and design with the practicality of a partner, right? Because it's not in alignment typically. So they're blending this strong, you have a very strong, beautiful aesthetic. Your design intuition's spot on, everybody. Just amazing. It's your house was yummy, just beautiful, just gorgeous. So how do you blend it? How does it work now with 3 children under one household and a new, you
I
and
don't know how it'll work in this situation, but I've done it before. So I'm in second, third, fourth relationships, but I have done it before. And I mean, this is really like you met Heather Peterson, you interviewed Heather Peterson. She was incredible, right? And in the past, how I've approached it is I have a stronger point of view, but tell me what's important to you, right?
right.
Like, tell me what are your must haves in this. Is it a collection of this, or is it this piece of artwork, or is it this piece of furniture?
Mhm.
And holding on to those things and finding a way to incorporate them. This time, I think it's going to be a little bit different because the kids are older. His girls are 16. I have a 15-year-old. They have a point of view. And I think it's really important that this house feels like theirs.
Mhm.
So I think we'll work with Heather again on it, but it'll be probably a little more minimalist, right? To
Yeah.
reflect a little more of a neutral space for everyone. And then I think there's spaces we know that are going to be more dedicated to them, right? Like
Mhm.
we have this lovely primary suite that will be totally ours and we can do whatever. But I think some of the shared spaces will want to bring in some of their points of view, right? And have them be a part of the process. And it's a fun process. Like I love the process. I love the
Yeah.
design process. I thank you for saying that about my design point of view, but I really feel like I know what I like. I'm not the person who pulls it together, but when I see it, I know it. So we'll need some help, but I think it's important that everyone in the house feels like they're a part of this, right? I want it to feel like a home for everyone, not just for me. And that's
Yeah.
going to look a little different.
From where you were from, yeah, like what you came out of, because that was quite dynamic. When we layer in some of the images, you had a very intriguing, like the feedback on your home was spectacular. I mean, everybody from every ilk just loved the space. And do you want to touch a little bit on how you adjusted and designed the space around your 15-year-old now? You want to share a little bit with everybody because it's a
Sure.
fascinating and really
Yeah,
interesting and, a little bit sad, but really amazing too, what
it's
you've done for this
incredible.
person. Yeah.
Right. It's like I didn't have kids prior to my nephew moving in and never thought I would and really couldn't imagine my life with children. And now I couldn't imagine it without him. So he's my brother's son. My brother passed away and my nephew ended up moving in with me. So he's been with me for 6 years now. But it was kind of a crazy so that dynamic of just bringing that
Wow.
energy and all of the emotion into your house was really because my home, this, like my home is my grounding, right? That's like my source of energy. Like that's where I recharge. So having that in balance and harmony is a huge priority for me. So then you bring this like emotional energy and kid energy into the house. And it was really hard. Like it was really, really hard at first to figure out how does this fit? All the
Mhm.
puzzle pieces in your life are sort of scattered and you have to like reassemble them back together. And we
Right.
had just finished doing decorating the best guest room for the first time. So it was sort of like, okay, like opportunity, do over, right? So we did his room specifically for him, and we tried to do it in a way, because at the time, he had just turned 10. It's like
Right.
he's going to be transitioning into teen years really quickly. So we didn't want it to be too young. We wanted it to have, we did like the beautiful constellation wallpaper on the ceiling from Ralph Lauren, but really elevated, right? Like it's a darker charcoal with gold. Like you can work with that
Beautiful.
as he grows up. So we tried to pick pieces and aesthetic that would grow with him through the years. And then I think there's just the organization of things and sort of embracing the idea that, I have a lot of clothes. I have a lot of things like that, but we transformed one of the bedrooms upstairs into a walk-in closet, and just kind of, that was a hard move for me, just because you're kind of like, well, I want to use this for an office, or I want to use this for a different space, or I want to keep it as a guest room. And it's like, that's not what really works for my life. So understanding these are the needs, this is what's going to make getting up in the morning and getting ready for bed at night so much easier if I just sort of accept that this is how my life works. And I think that's the great thing, working with any interior designer. I'm sure they start from the same way. It's like, what's the function, right? Like, what's the function that this space or this home needs to have? And then the design follows.
I agree. I mean, that's brilliant advice for anybody, Becky, really. I think that when we get caught up in our own head with our own vision, and keeping in mind you've got all these other moving parts as it relates to the family members, right? And in some cases, families are quickly shifted and changed because of new relationships. So you've got new entities as part of your life, and you have
Right.
to
I mean,
work
life
around that.
happens.
Yeah, life happens.
In the case of my nephew, I had about a few days notice before I knew he was moving in. So we had to
That's crazy.
transition pretty quickly, but it's been an amazing journey with him. And he actually loves the design too. So it's fun. It's kind of fun to talk with him because he has lots of ideas. He has ideas I would have never even thought of. He has lots of ideas for his new space. So there's definitely going to be,
That's
like most teenage boys, he's a gamer, so he wants a gamer desk. And if you've ever looked at gamer desks, they're not they're not attractive at all. They're kind of hideous. So we're making some compromises on that space. But again, it's like, that's what
laughing
we're
right now.
I can live with it. I can shut the door.
Shutting the doors. Yeah. The design, when you're looking at houses, you do think about that, right? Especially with kids that are growing up. It's like, okay, I don't really want to look at this. So how is this going to feel?
Well, and I think it's like those pick your battle. I mean, just as a parent in general, right? Like the pick your battle moments. And it's like, am I picking a battle over a desk? I'm not. I'll let that one go.
Wow. So in navigating decision making for those that are in the place in their life right now where they're experimenting with the idea of letting go of their independent homes and blending, what would be the best piece of advice you'd give them? Because I think there's a lot of them out there, Becky. I think there really is a lot of that going on.
I don't know that I have any advice. I mean, I think for us, it was really just a little bit of not letting the process make the decisions, right? Because I think you get caught up and it's like, well, we've started looking, so this means we're doing something. And it was like, no, we don't have to do anything. And like sort of remembering that first and foremost, it's like nothing here has to change. Everything can stay the same. And I think in that, you kind of lose a little bit of that sense of urgency in a good way, so that you wait, right? Like, you wait and you find the right piece or place. And it's just like anything, it just felt right. And I think when we kind of like took the pressure valve off and said, this could be a while, and then ultimately it wasn't, right? Ultimately it wasn't, because we saw this place and just immediately fell in love. But it was sort of like, let go of the idea that this has to happen. And I'm sort of a list checker, and I'm sort of a person who, like, once I decide something, now we're going to do it, right? Like now it's happening. And so for me, I think I had to let go of that a little bit and just say, like, this will happen when it's right. And we really wanted everyone to feel good about it too. So it's like, we wanted all the kids to be excited. One of our kids was not able to see the house, so we kind of missed a little bit on that one, but thank goodness she loved it when she saw it. But it was important. And I think even that in the process, was a turning point for me was we started looking, and then we started bringing the kids with us looking. And when we could hear them sort of play back some excitement or some ideas and
Yeah.
sort of like talk about living together, that was really pivotal for me, was to get that feedback, right? They're excited, they're into this, they can see it. And then I think it made it a little bit easier. Everyone's situation is different. So it's like, sometimes it's like, you decide and like the kids will figure it out, and that happens. And depending on where you're at in your life, like that might be right. I think for us, it was just more about like, there was no reason anything had to happen with a degree of urgency. So
Mhm.
try to like take that stress layer out and let the kids sort of process the change too, was really important. And ultimately, I think, when we all came in this place, we felt it. And I think that made it a lot easier to blend the families, was just having the right space.
I agree. I agree. I think you nailed it on the head. And I rinse and repeat this every time I meet couples just like you. The moment you can engage in this experience and go out and just enjoy looking at beautiful real estate at
Mhm.
whatever price point it is, right? The
Mhm.
moment you can do that and engage in a way that's non-pressured and just go have fun with it is the moment you've made your decision, because it's fun now.
Totally.
It's
Exactly. And
not
I think that was part of
stressful, it's fun now. That is instrumental in the process, is making it fun, because it's supposed to be
it.
fun. Yeah,
Right. And I know that's not like, that doesn't work for everyone. They're, switching jobs or
yeah,
moving, or they have to make a decision. I think we were fortunate enough that we could wait. I think the only, the waiting for us, the hard part is, as anyone in a relationship where you have children, the back and forth and like feeling like
mhm,
you're living between two houses, especially, I mean, for me, where my house is organized around me and it's organized around Logan, and to bring in like partial energy half time with clothes, not having a home, and like part of some of your stuff is at this house and some of your
yeah.
stuff is at this house. Like that's hard for me. Both of us were like, I'm so glad at the end of the day, we're so glad it's not like, okay, well, I've got to leave at 10:30, but then maybe tomorrow I'll swing back over here. You kind of like taking those
Yeah.
logistics, managing two houses out of it, where we just get to focus our energy on one.
Yeah.
I mean, we're 1 week today into this house, and already it's like, oh, this is so nice. Like, we get to go back to this place together, and we get to do these things together and work on our yard together, instead of like, tomorrow we'll come over and do your garage project, and then the next day we'll come over and plant stuff at my house. So it's nice to have a single point that we can all come together, instead of kind of spreading it out, and it feels a little
Yeah.
bit chaotic.
Well, I always say it is. I mean, even though we try to pull the pain the best we can out of it, moving is hard. I mean, we would be lying to say moving for
Yeah,
anybody isn't hard, regardless of the size of it. So the words I use is short-term pain for the long-term gain.
a
And
hundred
you
percent.
put a smile on and just get through it. And sometimes it's hard, but there's light at the end of the tunnel and you just hit your light.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see, we've had a couple days. It was the holiday this past week, so we were gone. So we sort of moved in, and then we went out of town, and then we came back. So
Yeah.
it's been a very chaotic few weeks for us. But Chris was traveling while this move was happening, so there
Yeah.
was just like there was a lot of life happening around this move to kind of fit this in. But it's fun to start being in a place where you're seeing the other side. And I will say, as much as like I hated moving, I hated it. There was times I was just like, I can't. You'd walk into a room and be like, there's still stuff in here. How is there still stuff in this room? Like, I swear, like everything's gone, and then you still miss things. It is
I
kind of a
know.
cathartic process, right? Like, it is like, there's something about going through all of your things and touching all of your things and like making decisions about those that, of course, now in retrospect, I'm like, I should be like been doing this more frequently and doing life edits and
Yeah.
edits more
Stuff.
often,
Yeah.
because it does feel really good too.
Honey, you just another nugget, because this is um it's an epidemic, really. And
Mhm.
I think it kind of stems a little bit from a delay in the world for 2 years and this need to collect, and they were in their homes so much. I've seen more need for stuff management than I've ever seen in my career of 25 years.
I
It's
believe it.
crazy. And when you move, it does force that awareness because you do really need to touch all your things. And it forces that organization that's so easy to put a pause button on. Oh, I'll deal with this later. Oh, I'll deal with this later. And before you know it, 5 years later, I'm like, oh, I'll deal with this. Maybe now, maybe
It
later.
is. I'll just shove this in here and I'll box it. And I mean, fortunately, in my situation, like the house I was in, it was just two of us, and it was a nice size home, so it could accommodate a lot of these things. But I mean, yeah, it does. It is a little bit of harsh self-reflection when you start to see all of it together of like why, and it's like you look back of like when we were all, in our 20s and moving around, and you could fit everything
Right.
in your car, and you're like, what happened to that girl that could fit all of her clothes in her car?
It
It's
goes
like
by so fast. Yeah.
something has happened. And this is a fun side story about that because I've touched on I have a lot of clothes and I've collected clothes, and it's kind of been one of those things. And I had a job where I used to dress up all the time, and I loved that part of it. But I'm having a friend. So I have a friend who is a fashion consultant who is actually coming over. And this could be something to share too, is she's coming over to help me do a closet edit. And she's done it with me
Wow.
before. Yeah, it's really cool. She does amazing work. She's got such a phenomenal sense of style, and she's come over before. And I think what's interesting is the last time she came over, the life dilemma was I have all these clothes, but I have nothing to wear, right? Like I have all these beautiful things. How do they go together? How do they fit? What are my gaps to help pull it together?
Right.
And we did that a few years ago, which was a very fun process. So she's actually going to come over in a couple of weeks, and we're going to do edit. Right. And I think that's going to feel hard, and it's going to feel like therapy in some
I
ways.
might
But
have
I
to
think
invite myself over for that and shoot some video.
you
That
totally
sounds
get,
super
yes, do shoot
fun.
some video for it. She's amazing. I think, yeah, I do. I think it's going to be a little bit difficult of a process, but I think it's going to be pretty
Ooh,
amazing.
she'd be fun to interview.
She's great. Yep. She's on, she does a lot of the TV shows in town. She's a great personality. She's lovely. We used to work together a million years ago, and just one of those people that you want to stay close to in your life because they just have such charisma and great energy and positivity. And I'm just like, come over. We'll, like when she's come over before, we'll have a glass of wine and we'll go through these things, and it's fun. So I think the edit, as painful as it will be, because it's with her and I adore her, I think we will have fun in the process too.
Okay, what is her name again?
She's Amy Seaman. So
Oh,
her
sure.
Amy Seaman,
Yeah.
you've probably heard of her before, but
Yeah.
she's got a great story too, where she left corporate America to sort of pursue this dream and
I
is
think I
doing
saw
it and
something
is
about
living it.
that. That's amazing. And it's a huge need. Like there's a lot of women out there and men, by the way, that could use some serious editing when it comes to their wardrobe. It's like an overwhelm when you walk into their
It
closet.
is. It is.
And they're like, they're not wearing most of it.
Mhm.
It just happens. Like when you love clothes, she's got quite a thriving business, I'm sure.
She
You
does.
have to
She does.
videotape that. That is just amazing. Okay, so what I also want to talk about, because this is a real thing, right?
Yeah.
Pets.
That's
Comming-
yeah.
the commingling of pets. How do you do that?
Well, we had 2 weeks. So because we had the 3 properties, like our closing dates didn't line up. It
Yeah.
all worked out, but my house closed last, but I moved out first, right?
Mhm.
And moved to Chris's house for a couple of weeks. So we had a couple of weeks to acclimate the pets, mostly the cats, because I have a dog. I have a cat. Chris has two cats, and the dog comes with me when I go over there. So the dog was already sort of used to his pets. But yeah, the combining of pets was a little bit of a challenge in those first 2 weeks at Chris's house. I think they were just like, what's happening to our lives? So I feel like it was a little bit traumatic for them, but they also, I think, and you and I talked about this too with the blending of families. And for us, and again, this doesn't, everybody's different. For me, it was really important that we were coming to a neutral space together. We had talked about, do we move into Chris's house? At some point, do we wait? And does he move into my house? And it just felt right to bring everyone to neutral territory and kind of start this together.
Yeah.
Uh, when what's funny about that is now we're actually seeing that like the animals, it was kind of a mess for the 2 weeks that I was at Chris's house, but when we moved here, you could almost see that play out with them too. Of like there was so much exploring and other distractions and newness that they sort of like forgot about each other a little bit. So
Yeah.
I think it's working for us. I think it's going to work for the pets too.
Well, this house has technically 3 stories to it. And
Mhm.
we knew when we went up to the master on the top level, we knew exactly what pet would take over that
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
Accurate?
It's interesting. Not yet, but I think they're still finding their spaces. They're still figuring it out. They will come and visit, I'm sure, at some point because they're all very like they're all very affectionate, needy pets. So they will probably make an appearance. But yeah, I think they're still assessing it, which I think will, Chris's 2 daughters are still traveling, so they haven't moved in yet. So they will move in
Okay.
a couple of weeks. And I think when we have everyone here, it'll be the same, right? Like we're the little, as you know, like it was really important that everyone felt like they had spaces that
Mhm.
were their own and that were private, where they
Yeah.
could go and like read a book or go and like hang out with their friends.
Mhm.
So I think it'll be interesting to see too with them how that starts to shake out once everyone is in the place. And like we're kind of doing
Yeah.
that now too, where we make our coffee in the morning. Or like, where are we going to go sit on this back patio? Or are we going to sit out front? Or are we going to sit, where are we going to sit in the kitchen? And like we're kind of finding our new routine too.
Because there are so many places to be, and they're all
Mhm.
beautiful. They're all
They're
beautiful.
all beautiful. So
That's
far, we're just kind of
wonderful.
rotating around. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, in the design component of playing out the space, do you feel like that's hard, or do you feel like it's it? What would you say to a female when they're moving in at this stage? Because you're the combining of personal property, you are kind of lucky because at Chris's house we did have to dump a lot because the cats kind of did a number on some of the furniture, right? So
Yep.
furniture management 101, how do you do
Furniture.
that? I always say furniture management 101, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, it helped that he had and this was your team, significantly edited his pieces. I mean, he does have a different aesthetic for furniture than I do. He's more mid-century modern, and I go a little bit more on the glam side. But I think like searching, looking at things, looking at inspiration, there's actually a really lovely overlap of those two in between.
I agree.
So I think like having us aligned by just like sharing inspiration photos, right, will help bring us to that place. But yeah, he's also generally, I think, he knows that the design is kind of my thing. And I feel like he probably will see. You could interview me in like a 6 months and tell me if this plays out, but I think he'll give me a little bit more leeway. He'll have a point of view, he'll have an opinion about it, but I think he'll give me a little more leeway on that. And in that, like, I think I'm prepared that I want it to be flexible. I really don't want a step and repeat of what I had in my house. Like I want
Yeah.
this to be different and I want it to feel different. And he's got this great dining room table that I'm sitting at right now that I think is beautiful, right? So I think
It
it
is
again kind of
beautiful.
goes back to what are those signature pieces? What are those things that you love? And I think generally there's a way to incorporate those, right?
Mhm.
And in this case, there's less of them, so that will make it easier.
Mhm.
But he's got a few things
Exactly.
that I really do love, yeah, that I think will be amazing.
So when the girls come back, I think that's interesting because they're twins, right? And they're
Twins.
16. So what I
Mhm.
was going to mention, and I lost the thought, it's just popped back. As parents, the awareness of the shift in the world and that the kids are going to be a part of our ecosystem longer than it used to be for us, right? Where we went off to college at 18 and did our 4 years and then started our career. Things are just running a little differently now. And they say on average, it takes about age 25 before
Mhm.
these kids are really launched. Would you say that in deciding on a home, factoring, because I have a lot of um, clients like you that are trying to navigate this very discussion right now. How long do I anticipate? Does each child need a space? How does that feel and breathe? And personally, I kind of say They kind of do. You know, they need
I,
a place to call home.
I think you're 100% right. I think that conversation, and that was a conversation we had when we first met you,
Yeah.
that was pivotal. Was just like, it's not 18. And furthermore, we don't want it to be, we want them to come home to us. We want them to be here for holidays and the summers and all those things. And it's like, if we do this abrupt shift from full household to what we would pick just as two people,
Mm-hmm.
that's not going to feel good. That's not going to feel welcoming. And it's like, like we're all about these kids and we want them in our lives. And it's like, we love them and we like them. we like
Yeah.
them. We want to spend time together. So it was in that initial conversation with you that it was a little bit of a light bulb that it's like, oh no, if we're waiting 10 years, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot happens in 10 years. And that was for us, like, that feels too long to
Yeah.
sort of live two lives and live in two spaces and frankly to be apart. And I think again, that's like part of, dating when you're older. It's like, we don't want to wait.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to wait. We want to be together. And
Yeah.
then starting to see the kids get on board with the idea and get excited. And they certainly had their journey with it too.
Right.
Starting to see them get excited and talk about it and talk about things we would do together. And I mean, just even like trivial logistic things like, well, where would we keep our milk? And we'll have to do this, and we'll have to get a second fridge in the basement, and like their wheels are turning and they're planning. You're like, oh, they're into this.
Yeah.
That made a big difference too. But yeah, I agree. I think it's older, and I think we want it to be right. Like, we
Yeah.
want them to come to us and have a space where they feel good coming back
Agree.
after they've gone away.
I think COVID was a huge reality of it was a reality check for families across the world, right? And how they live. All of a sudden, the right sizing efforts that were happening, they were calling and saying this wasn't right in size, given the dynamic of everyone really moving back in again. And so when they're changing homes out or combining households, they're really looking at the long game.
Mhm.
Yes, on occasion, the two of you will be rambling around in a 3-story home. That is going to happen, but there's guests and company and parents and children in and out, and eventually grandchildren. And people are looking at the right sizing effort differently now than they used to. They really are. All ages, they are, because
Yeah,
people are spending more time together after what happened. Do you
yeah,
think?
I agree. I totally
Yeah.
agree. I think it also just changed for me how I view my relationships with my friends and how we come together. And
Mhm.
we had a group of friends in COVID that was our, like, bubble to some extent. And I had just finished a kitchen remodel right before that happened, which was so well timed because my kitchen before wasn't really set up to entertain. And the kitchen I ended up doing really
Beautiful.
it was
Yeah.
perfect for that. And it was sort of perfect for COVID, where you wanted to have, your small circle together. And we ended up hosting so many things, and we hired backyard bartenders to sit outside and teach us how to make cocktails, and you had more time to experiment with menus and with food. And to
Mhm.
me it was like, oh my gosh, this has been missing. This is so much richer than going out to dinner together or trying to get 10 people around a table at a noisy restaurant or a bar, or it
Mhm.
feels really intimate and it feels really cozy, and you're in each other's homes and you're making things together or you're learning something together. And that changed, just that will stay with me for the rest of my life, is like discovering that love of entertaining and bringing friends together
Mhm.
around, like, not just the food's important, but it was usually incorporated to something we were going to do together or something we were going to learn, was huge. And
Yeah.
so, and looking
That's
for a new
brilliant.
space, it was like, that needs to carry through because I don't want to let that go. So those types of friendships that you form in those intimate spaces are just the best kind, right?
Oh
And it's
my
like
gosh,
they
the
need that kind
best.
of nurturing and care. And I think food is just such a great way to bring people together like that. So it's like, when we started looking, the entertaining piece was important for me. And that really didn't start until COVID. I mean, we would have people over for sure, but that like really like creating an experience around it in your home, like that didn't happen for me until COVID.
I agree. I think that the world has gotten so fast tracked. We're moving so fast. That was an interesting and dynamic time of slowing time.
Mhm.
And it was a reality check for a lot of people, I think. That's beautiful. That's very well spoken, Becky. That's like a perfect little clip right there. We're going to have to share with the world. Really, really brilliant. My dear, I am so excited you were able to share your story with everyone. You're so lovely. You got great energy. You have a great story. And I'm so happy for you and Chris. I really am.
Oh, thank you.
Cannot
You and your
wait
team
to get
are
over there.
just incredible. Like I feel really lucky that we met you and we had the pleasure of having you guide us through this process. I've told you this a million times, but I mean, you and your team were just, you
Oh,
know,
thank you.
a 5 stars. Like it was really incredible. I never felt like I had to worry because I knew you guys were doing all of that for me. So
It's
it's
a
like you,
gift. It
you
really
made it
is.
really easy. You made it really easy, and it's a big life move, and there's a lot of emotions involved in it.
There
But
is.
to know that somebody is managing the details of it, I think like that let us focus on the blending of family dynamics and any of the feelings that were coming up about it. And we didn't have to worry about the other things. So thank
Yeah.
you,
You're
you and
so
your team.
welcome,
It was
honey.
a
You're so
pleasure.
welcome. You're so welcome. I can't wait to come over and meet the edit lady.
It's getting there. It's getting there. Give me
Okay,
a
so
year.
oh my gosh. So Becky Burley, everyone, we didn't even get into your career, but Becky's a pretty dynamic lady. So we're going to have to do another interview and talk about that. Just brilliant. Wonderful interview. Thank you so much.
Anytime, Carrie Ann.
Exactly what I thought it would be. Thank you.
Lovely to see you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Have a beautiful day.
You
Mwah.
too.
Okay. Bye.